Seriously, what the are you talking about?
Everyone, just letting you know that all figures found in this review could be found over at BigBadToyStore.com. Links could be found in the description below, and if you guys use them, they help out the channel quite a bit. Out of all the figures I have yet to cover, I couldn't think of a better pair to review during Spoopy Month than the Venom Knull 2-pack from Marvel Legends, commemorating the 60th anniversary of Spider-Man. It's part of that wave, part of that line, and you're probably wondering to yourself, why did they pack this Knull guy? I don't even recognize this guy. I mean, it looks kind of familiar. He may have been in a couple of comic runs here and there, and trust me, I was kind of in the similar boat, so I did my research, and basically, Knull is the guy. He is the symbiote guy. He created the symbiotes, and he's pretty much the one that created the goo that then entrapped Venom, aka Eddie Brock here, when he was on Earth. And he also created the all-black Necrosword, which is pretty much what is then given to Gore, etc., etc. And we then get reminded of Thor Love and Thunder. That was a big misfire. Anyways, that's besides the point. We're here to cover these two figures and exactly answer the question why it is that these guys are priced at a whopping $77.99 or $73.99, depending on where you choose. I know that sometimes Target shaves a little bit off the top, but still, for two figures, that's a really hefty asking price. Well, let's figure out exactly why it is that they're marked that way. First, before I tackle either one of them single-handedly, you'll notice the two of them right off the bat. They are definitely taller than your average 6-inch. They're following the 6-inch scale, and it's funny because in the description it says that these are 6-inch figures. They're following the 6-inch scale, but they're not actually 6 inches. You can definitely tell that they're probably teetering. I would say Venom is probably more so along the lines of being 7 inches, whereas Knull is actually even taller than Venom here, as you can see. So we're actually looking at a respective 7 to 7.5, possibly even kind of closing up on 8 inches for Knull himself. So that's pretty remarkable that they went ahead and actually made them to scale and then shrink them down, because we've seen that happen in times past, and that's never really worked out for either the quality of the figure or the reception by the fans. Since we already know what Venom is all about, let's go ahead and get him out of the way and tackle Knull himself single-handedly here and really see what he's all about, since out of the 2-pack, he's the one that I could have given or taken, because my main focus, my main draw out of the 2-pack was Venom, because I genuinely wanted to have an authentic looking Venom Marvel Legends that was to scale with the rest of my Spidey figures. So having Knull thrown in there, I was kind of like, okay, I guess I'll take him. It's just a bummer that he's kind of inflating the price because of the fact that he is a 2-piece set or a 2-figure set. So here's the deal. He actually ends up being a bit more of a surprise than I was led to believe. He's not without his quirks, not without his little details here and there that I look at and I go, yeah, well, I could have anticipated that out of a Knull figure, because I like the actual structuring of the figure itself. The way that he feels actually does feel pretty quality. It's not necessarily the sturdiest of the figures. Sometimes the limbs do feel a little bit on the too flexible side. I don't want to call them loose, but they just feel in the vein of feeling like you just need to properly situate them and adjust them in a way where it doesn't feel like he's going to be able to topple, considering just how much high he is. But overall, in terms of presence, sculpting, and detailing, they've actually done a remarkable job, especially when it comes to applying detail and paint to the armor. I would probably say if Knull's going to have like this kind of chivalrous kind of look to his overall design, especially lifted from the comics, then you gotta make sure that that armor comes through really well. And it does, because you get this really cool matted yet slightly glossy texture to the gauntlets, the shoulder pieces, as well as the armor here on the main part of his chest, with the symbiotic looking kind of red symbol kind of wrapping itself around. I would have loved it if it had carried over to the back, but at least it's good to see that they got a little bit of indentation and little puncture wounds. So you can kind of see a little bit right there. It's almost like the armor itself is chipping itself away, almost like it has actually seen battle. And I like little details like that. You can also see that a little bit more, like I said, in the boots and the guards for the knees. And then we get to a little bit of that skirt design that he's got going on right here. It's made out of that I don't want to say flimsy, but flexible rubberized kind of plastic, so it's doing a fair enough job right there to get the point across. What I actually got a little bit more surprised of is the detail going alongside the wraps that are around his forearms, as well as the muscle-like texture going on here on the thighs. It's unfortunately a little bit covered up by the skirt piece, so you have to do a little bit of digging work to be able to notice that little detail. But I'm loving the little kind of etchings going on right there to make it look like it's this dark, bloodless muscle underneath his skirt right there, kind of seeping into his thighs, kind of evocative of the character. Like, oh, there's nothing underneath there. There's no life. There's no blood. And that's exactly what a character like Knull is supposed to be. Then you get to the face sculpt, which is, of course, devoid of any color. He's pasty white, along with some really great red eyes. And the sculpting going around his face, the cheekbones, and just the overall flush of his actual facial features is actually done rather well. The hair itself is also sculpted in a fixed position. It looks kind of like it's floating or blowing in the distance, so that might be a little bit subjective, but at least for me, it's doing an exceptional job of getting a little bit of that lining correct. Articulation is then just a little interesting because being that out of the two, he's the one that's sporting more like a bit of an armor. You know how I feel about some characters, whether it be from Marvel or DC, that are sporting an armor. It's going to be a little limiting on the articulation, and I'm already going into it with preconceived notions that the articulation is going to suffer from that. There's a little bit of that happening, but not to the full extent that I was perceiving. Because when it comes to the head, being that there's actually no armor going alongside the head, it's actually the one that's the most restricted, because turning left to right is ever so slightly due to the way that hair is sculpted. Now, granted, you could always kind of nudge it off the side and then be able to turn it a full 360, but you can definitely feel a hefty amount of resistance from either side, considering, like I said, the way that hair is sculpted. Nevertheless, though, there is some slight pivoting downwards and upwards, not only in due part to the joint that allows it to rotate, but also there's a secondary joint at the baseline of the neck that allows it to kind of nudge slightly in any kind of direction. It's not the most fluid kind of joint there is out there, but it does get some more mobility made possible, so I do commend that fact. And then you get to the shoulders, which you would imagine would be a humongous problem with these giant-ass shoulder pieces here on the side, but they did an exceptional job of gluing these shoulder pieces onto the shoulder in a way where it's flexible. It kind of feels like they're about to come off, but not get flimsy enough to be worrisome whenever jostling or kind of moving about the figure, because when you rotate the joints 360 degrees vertically, they completely move alongside the shoulder, that it never really truly gets in the way. Only when extending to the sides then does it come in conjunction with the joint and kind of limits the extension all the way to that side right there, to that pretty much that degree, that flat 180 degree angle, but you come to expect that. And then you do have a bicep swivel that allows the arm to rotate in place 360 degrees, two joints at the elbow that are able to fully bend all the way upwards, and then of course a wrist joint that allows it to rotate 360 degrees, as well as being able to bend it upwards and downwards like that, and very fluidly too. It feels good actually moving these joints about. Torso is pretty much null, if you will. Sorry, I had to. Only because there is a hinge joint that allows it to pivot upwards and very slightly downwards, but there is an ab portion of the armor that pretty much comes in the way and stops movement of that entirely. So your only real option is to be able to extend them towards the back like that. But there is a waist joint that separates from the skirt and therefore allows it to move in a ratcheted way all the way around 360 degrees, so it does allow that. Then you get to the top leg joints that do allow the leg to move almost all the way up until that degree right there, and then slightly towards the back. It doesn't seem like there's a butt sculpt in the way, but of course you do get the majority of the skirt pretty much coming into contact with that. You do have a thigh swivel built into the musculature there that allows it to rotate in place 360 degrees, as well as the top leg joint allowing it to extend towards the sides. And thankfully the skirt does have forms of cutouts, if you will, here on the side that allow it to extend like so, in almost about I want to say like a 50-degree angle, not even a 45, but rather a 55-ish degree angle. So some proper extension going on right there. 2 joints at the knee, actually. Take that back. No, yeah, 2 joints. 2 joints at the kneecap that allow it to bend all the way upwards like so. And then, of course, you get to those traditional Marvel Legends ankles that are able to pivot downwards and upwards smoothly. But when it comes to rotating, you have to bend them downwards in order to get that all the way across. Otherwise, they're pretty much stuck. But thankfully, due to that thigh joint, that is rectified. So there's some compromises made there. Now, I'm going to cover his accessories during the accessory portion, all grouped together along with Venom, but because of that, let's go ahead and get him out of the way so that then we can tackle the lethal protector himself, the one that is actually a byproduct, a child, if you will, from Knull, Venom, aka Eddie Brock. Finally, I got my own personal 7.5 inch to scale Venom figure that I've always kind of wanted in my collection, because sadly I did kind of miss out on some very essential issues of Venom, from classic Marvel Legends to the animated series version. The only other Venom that I own is the purple Spider-Man 3 one.
Hey, Parker.
Okay, let me try to hop out of my own little hole of depression here by finally finding happiness in owning my own 7-inch figure, but not without some things that I really wish that they could have changed up on. But we'll get to those eventually. For the time being, I really am digging the look and the sculpture of this Venom. It's actually an awesome figure, and it's good to see that the one thing that I was drawn to for this 2-pack ended up being the showcase. It's cool to see that Knull definitely surprised me in a pleasant way, but he was more so of the bonus. Venom is truly where it's at, and to see that he pretty much left a really great impression on me here from this 2-pack, to me personally, made it worth it. I understand if maybe $73 to $78 is kind of pushing it for a Venom figure, especially if you already own one, but considering the aforementioned trauma of dealing with only one Venom figure for the majority of my collecting career, you can see how rejoiced I was to finally have a much more faithful interpretation of Venom here in the 7-inch Marvel Legends scale. So seeing that they were able to get the paint decor right, obviously the white symbol here on his chest is elongated but very stylized. It looks awesome. It wraps all the way around towards the back, and then you get the actual proper symbiotic gooey kind of texture going alongside the entirety of the body. It kind of mixes and matches an awful lot of that matted, slightly slimy, but not fully glossy kind of look to his overall decor. And along with that, you also get proper muscular definition. He's to scale. He doesn't look like he's too bulky or too lean or too weird looking. He's, in my opinion, almost correct in all the right places. And I say almost because of his feet. It's those feet that are just completely throwing me off. You typically expect traditional shoe-looking feet on an awful lot of these figures, even when they're supposed to be in some form of suit, including Venom. Venom figures in the past have always had the traditional shoe-looking feet, and this time they decided to go for something, I guess, anatomically correct, but still very weird looking because of how used we are to having those traditional shoe feet, that this time giving him toes, it's just off-putting. It's just completely off-putting, and just it just feels weird that maybe later down the line, if I come across a different figure, it doesn't necessarily have to be Venom. It could be just any figure that happens to be sporting black shoes and fits to scale with this guy. Maybe he'll get a swap of some kind of custom job, but for the time being, it's just something I'm going to have to deal with. At least what I can try to do is distract myself away from the feet and on over to his head. The sculpting on the face is awesome. There's going to be some more sculpting detail covered later on when we get to the accessories for Venom, but for now, I'm dealing with the much more stoic, smiling look, only because it's a little bit less animated. I understand that that's not the face or the head that he comes packaged in, but I feel like for the sake of the review, this is how I'm going to cover him first. And the teeth, the eyes, I mean, that's Venom. That's Venom through and through right there. I would probably say upon closer inspection, there's a weird kind of brownish line alongside the area where the gums would be in the teeth. I don't know if that's like a paint malfunction or something going on right there, or if that was meant to be intentional, but at least from far away, it still looks pretty decent for a Venom figure and for a brand new take on the character. And the articulation pretty much matches it to boot. You get the head that's able to rotate 360, as well as being able to pivot upwards and downwards. Just be careful because it does make it a little prone to snap off, like it's already done a couple of times on me. And then you get the top arm joints that are able to have a ratcheted movement, rotating it all the way around 360, as well as proper extension towards the sides. No armor pieces to come in the way here, but it does stop at the 180 degree angle like so. You do get the bicep swivels that are able to fully rotate and feel good doing so. 2 elbows at the joints here that are able to fully bend, as well as the wrists that are able to rotate all the way around, and the hinge inside able to pivot inwards and outwards, and no forms of hesitation or hindrances in doing so. That's why the arms actually feel really good to articulate and pose and animate. Then you get to the torso, which has this cut here in the middle part that's kind of reminiscent of the black suited Spider-Man Marvel Legends that I recently got, and it's able to fully rotate all the way around, as well as slightly incline towards the front and the back, so you're able to get a full abdominal crunch all the way vertically, as well as even slightly side to side, as you can kind of see right there. And that's on top of the hinge joint that is baked into this area right here where the symbol kind of stops, so you're able to fully crunch all the way inwards like so, or extend all the way to the back like that. That is awesome. It's one of my favorite torso joints or torso combinations that I've seen on the Marvel Legends in quite some time. Top leg joints are able to fully extend the leg all the way upwards like so. It's actually one of the more flexible ones. Unfortunately, not much in the way of being able to flex them back because of the butt sculpt this time, but you are able to extend them towards the sides like so. And then you do have a thigh joint, a very thick one at that is a little tight, but it does allow the leg to fully rotate in place 360. 2 joints at the knee that are able to fully bend all the way upwards like so. And then, of course, despite the weirdness of those feet, those alien-like feet, you are able to pivot them downwards and upwards, as well as rotate them. But of course, being that it's a Marvel Legends, you can only do so when you have the foot bent downwards. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to do so. Now, if what you're seeing is not necessarily warranting the value of $75 to almost $80 for these 2 figures, considering that they're still really well scaled, well detailed, Knull ended up being a surprise, and Venom fit the bill of being one of my favorite interpretations of the symbiote despite the awkward looking feet. Oh, there goes Knull. Then at the very least, Marvel Legends decided to pack them in with some accessories that sure may add a good decent of actual monetary value, but whether or not you're gonna utilize these accessories is more than likely gonna end up being a preferential sort of thing. Knull, for example, is actually the one that ends up, in my opinion, getting more of the safer accessories as far as the ones that you look at and go, yeah, there's definitely some certifiable functionality behind these 2 pieces. He gets a secondary head that you're able to swap that has a much more evil looking expression on his face, showing the teeth that looks very reminiscent of Venom, for example. And of course, he's got a much more angrier looking emotion to it. The overall texture and detailing and sculpting, especially behind his hair, is pretty much identical, except maybe there's a little bit more of wavy action going along with the head, but otherwise it's pretty much just another head with a different expression, and swapping them out is pretty easy. All you have to do is just give it a quick little tug on the original head. You got a traditional, very sturdy ball joint, and you just simply pop the other one into place. And you hear a very satisfying pop, and there you have him sporting the brand new face and looking all the much more sinister. Now, in doing so, I would say he now looks a bit more appropriate, if you will, to sport his other accessory in his holding hand, which is going to be the Necro Sword itself, the all-black Necro Sword that pretty much gives birth to an awful lot of these symbiotes. And I'm actually really digging the sword. I don't know how I feel about the actual flexible quality of rubber they used on it, but the actual detailing, especially with the little red tendrils kind of coursing throughout the entirety of the blade and the hilt, is actually a really cool effect, along with the little brown strap here on the handle. It's actually a pretty impressive little piece, and sporting it in his hand is actually pretty an easy going experience. There's nothing too kind of rigid or too difficult or stubborn about it. You could just fit it into his hand, and there you have him sporting the all black sword. So there you have it. Like I said, pretty safe, but it gets the job done. And I would say pretty matches the way I kind of feel about Knull himself, is that though he's meant to be kind of like the bonus, he pretty much did a good enough job to make me think, look at him and go, you know what? I'm definitely going to keep you. If I was to rate Knull by himself, I would say that he's a pretty safe but still enjoyable 7 out of 10. So that then leaves us with our boy Venom here. What exactly does he come with? Well, let's just say that there's a reason for why that box was so big, because though Venom does come with his own share of traditional accessories that an awful lot of Venom or even Spidey figures come with, such as the alternate set of hands. Of course, he comes by default with these open clawed hands, but if you want to swap him up with these fisted hands, you can do so as well, and it's very simple to do so. But like I foreshadowed before, he comes with an alternate head, the head that he technically comes default with, but I wanted to save for this part of the review, and that is the tongue head. The head with the open mouth, sporting the fleshy bits inside of his jaw, the jaw opening along the sides there of his cheeks. Of course, he's still got the traditional eyes, but then coming out of his mouth and within the fangs is the elongated, classic, trademark Venom tongue, and it's awesome. Look how detailed and sculpted that is. Very flexible with the rubberized plastic going on right there, but it gets the job done, and it's quintessential Venom. And of course, we gotta end the review with him sporting it. So swapping the heads is very much as easy as that with Knull, but that's actually not it. While I was covering the detail of the figure, you may have noticed that when we rotated the figure towards the back, he is sporting two rather gaping holes there on his backside. Very obvious to the naked eye there. And one would wonder, what exactly are those holes for? Well, that's because Venom comes with an extra pair of accessories that frankly is a bit much. I understand that maybe this is where a little bit of that extra money goes towards as far as that price hike, but I don't know exactly how I feel about this. I can't say I'm fully negative, but not fully positive on the inclusion of these things. They're pretty much like these vampire bat looking wings that you can attach to Venom to pretty much give him a fully decked out wingspan. You pretty much take these four very taco looking wing pieces and you pretty much can join them, assemble them together, and thus forming his wingspan that you can then fit into the holes on his back, pretty much giving him articulated wings. And yes, it does give him this sense of presence, this big showy kind of look to him. But honestly, when is a collector truly, like, this is the $1 million question, when is any one of us gonna display Venom with these wings? They're a nice little addition, a nice little inclusion to give us the value of spending this amount of money on this 2-pack, but I would have liked something else entirely. I don't know at the moment exactly what I can think of that would have warranted a much better accessory for Venom in this case. But the wingspan, to me personally, just doesn't do it. I mean, the wings themselves aren't even that bad. They're well painted and decently sculpted, and assembling them is not that much of an issue. But fitting them into the holes themselves, sometimes I can't tell if they're fully inside. I've had one of them fit in there no problem, but then the other one took a little bit of extra time to try to get fit in there and make sure that it's all the way through instead of just coming apart on me. And if they're gonna be throwing in these wings, then the least that they could have done, and maybe this is me asking just a bit too much, would have been to throw in a couple of these like plastic caps so that we can fill in these holes. That would have been a nice extra little goodie to at least compensate for the wings, is to throw in some caps so that we can fill in these holes, because they're a little bit obnoxious when we're not displaying him with the Venom wings. It would have been a nice little complimentary side piece to throw in some kind of caps to fill in the holes and not make it look so ugly whenever the figure is then rotated, because otherwise now it leaves this part exposed and it just doesn't benefit the figure after he's already been looking oh so badass this entire time. This Marvel Legends 60th anniversary Venom figure would have been damn near perfect, but the awkward feet and the overcompensation of accessories to mark up that price makes it come up just a little short, and thus I give him an 8 out of 10. It's still a very cool figure, and ultimately I guess you could argue that that brings the entire 2-pack to an average rating I want to say 7 out of 10. To me, it feels like this 2-pack is definitely a pickup if you don't already have a Venom figure, much like myself. If you're in the same situation as me and you have the money to cover it, this is definitely an absolute pickup. But if you are already an avid long wild collector that has already gotten a few iterations of Venom and you feel like this needs to be in that collection because you're a completionist, I would say either wait for some form of sale or wait if you get lucky enough to come across someone who's willing to part with the Venom figure and they end up keeping the Knull for themselves. That way you can at least get a little bit of a price reduction, because still, despite the quality found within both the Venom and Knull figures, there's still the questionable nature of whether or not some of these figures need to be at the price that they are via the ethics being worked over there at Hasbro Marvel Legends. You know, they've been in some hot waters recently, and I can't say that this necessarily dissolved a little bit of that tension, so to speak, because despite really having huge affinity for the Venom figure here and being pleasantly surprised by Knull, the question still remains whether or not some of these figures are worth this exact price. For me, it is for the time being, but I can understand if somebody draws hesitance from this 2-pack. But if you're looking for your own seminal Venom figure, much like how I was, then pick him and Knull up over at Big Bad Toy Store. There's going to be a link in the description, and it helps out the channel quite a bit. Otherwise, guys, let me know in the comment section below, does this look like a good pickup to you if you're in the habit of getting Marvel Legends and getting your own Venom figure, or if you're a huge Venom fan and you want to kind of complete your set? Is this a must-buy, or do you think you're going to wait down the line for some other renditions, such as that 3-pack that also comes with Riot and one other character, I can't remember their name? Let me know your guys' insights below, and of course, as always, thumbs up the video if you liked it, thumbs down if you didn't, subscribe for more Spidey and Batman content coming soon, and thank you for watching. Stay humble.